Lounge Presents. We are streaming live on Twitch, and like every episode, you can find us on demand, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Now, today in the lounge space, this is a gooder, as Canadians like to say. This is a gooder because for the first time in the lounge space, we welcome a gentleman that has gone by many monikers, and he's been known for doing many things. Once upon a time, they called him CL Scarb.
Oh my God, why you gotta start with this?
People know him as Sid Vicious, Big Six, and more recently, Speaker Bruiser Rob. But for the purpose of posterity and his place in the hip-hop canon, most know him as this gentleman. We call him Sixtoo. Hey!
Ooh, yeah, what's cracking? What's going on, Jay?
Respect every time. Thank you very much for spending time with us today.
Of course, man.
It is an honor and a pleasure to get you up. Please. So, my man, we always start off by asking asking guests on every episode one question, and I've said it on more than one occasion. The reason why I start off with this question is because usually by the end of the episode, the similarities that many of us have come to the fore, and before long, people realize that we've got a lot more in common with each other than we have dissimilar. So let me start by asking you, how are you first introduced to the hip-hop culture?
It's interesting, man. I grew up uptown Toronto in a mostly Jamaican and Trini hood, and my first introduction to sound system culture, even before I was really into rap music, was just through, hearing yard sounds that were going on in the courtyard at Antigua Village. So like my first memories of music kind of start with the blueprint of Toronto's Jamaican and Trinidadian community. And I lived real close to CKLN, which was uptown radio station. Yes. The first kind of radio stuff that I was hearing after I was going to like clubs even when I was really, really young. And most of the A Club, Focus, Inner City Zone, like a bunch of these spots I would go to reggae parties, Hollywood, they would play hip hop sounds too. And so my entry point to it kind of came from just growing up uptown. Nice. And it very quickly took away from like and was like, oh, I like this, I want to do this, Yeah. And the first music that I kind of independently was buying was like punk rock and like, I don't know, like AC/DC records and shit that like my dad played, but where I lived, I was exposed to this other music, and very quickly it turned into, by the time I was like through junior high, I was like fully just like listening to CKLN versus CHRY on Sundays, Master Plan show, like yep. Ron Nelson's show, like a bunch of stuff that like now is in the canon of like early Canadian contributions, and some of the first records that kind of came out in the Canadian hip hop canon, I was definitely listening to on radio as a young kid, There
you go.
Yeah, so that's kind of my entry points. Now,
you brought up your father listens to AC/DC. What else was being played around the home when you were growing up?
It's interesting, man. My dad was a crane operator, and my family split up very young, and so the only time I really got to hang out with him was on the weekends, once in a while, every other weekend. But he lived in Scarborough, like kind of near Cataraqui, like he was like Birch Mountain, St. Clair, and so there was this drive from uptown to Scarborough all the time, and I think my dad had like pretty good taste in music for like a sort of yacht rock dude. Like he listened to Fleetwood Mac, he listened to Black Sabbath, he listened to like he liked I forget the name of that band, but they were like an Australian band. Anyways, like he was listening to like what I would consider to be in the canon of kind of good rock stuff. And I think it, really kind of, I think rock being around when I was a kid definitely had something to do with what I gravitated towards when I started sampling records, because I really went in on like, the angles of like psych rock stuff, French library shit, Italian shit, stuff that like even krautrock stuff. And I think, me and Signify, and I could name a couple other folks that were kind of like digging more in those psych to kraut to French pop to Italian library stuff, maybe before other people were, or at least I wasn't hearing a ton of it when I started sampling shit, So I think the two kind of formative parts of like my musical DNA are like this rock stuff on the weekends, and then just being a product of your environment where you grew up with, and the stuff that you're exposed to independently and with your friends and with the people that are your chosen family. And that's kind of created the lexicon of music that I work in now. Everything from kind of dub and sound system stuff, designing and building venues even kind of came more from that DIY Jamaican sound system spirit that I saw in Toronto in the early 80s specifically. And then this other side that was just kind of like, oh, you listen to this other music that is just kind of like what's around and on the radio, and very, typically Canadian, I would say,
Yeah. I hear that. It's dope how you are able to yourself see the thread from the music that was being played around the home and what you were first exposed to when you were younger in your own music going forward.
Totally. And it's something that I had never really thought about it, but definitely when I'm speaking about it, it like kind of is a connective tissue,
Yeah.
Sorry, Jay, you're cutting out there a little bit.
Oh, snap. You hear me?
There we go. Good. Gotcha.
Okay. Can you remember the first dancehall record you ever bought?
Well, it's funny because when I first started, I lived at like Jane and Steele's, which is one major block north of Jane and Finch.
Yep.
And I went to Blacksmith Elementary. So like the stuff that's now like, murder tourism, rap fucking blog shit is now, it's like, those are the neighborhoods that I grew up in. And it's, I think, the sort of dramatization of a lot of that stuff. It was rough back in the 80s, I can tell you that. Oh, yeah. But I think like it also is the type of thing where like no matter where you grow up, and as a kid you don't really realize like how sus things might actually be. And so my memories of that stuff is very removed from that. And like the first things that kind of taught me about what I love as an adult, designing and building spaces for people is an extension of like the other loves, which are music, food, sometimes it's alcohol, sometimes it's like other things. But when you start combining those things together, you end up with like, an 80% meal and an 80% sound is going to be 100% experience. And that's kind of like where I, try to inform myself with what I'm doing now. Yeah. But yeah, the first record that really kind of caught my ear at that time that I was like, oh, I need to get this record was Black Cinderella. Like that record, it's a roots record.
Yep.
But to me, it kind of has all the hallmarks of the type of stuff that I even love now. Like even when I listen to bigger rhythms and like especially band stuff that's within the context of dancehall music now, I still like the big tunes by Tanya Stevens and like those kind of players that are, it's live bands. Maybe they're covering classic rhythms, but for the most part, it has the touch points of both dancehall and roots rockers, dub stuff, and it's kind of somewhere in the middle, usually with vocal stuff. And I still gravitate towards that. Even on my new record, there's one tune that is kind of like a little bit of a homage to those sounds. And, I kind of wanted to put a choppy hallmark of a hip hop production stand on that, but it definitely draws from that sort of music.
Okay. How about this one? Do you remember the first rap record you bought?
The first rap record I bought was MC Light 10% Diss.
Okay.
And it was funny because there was this kid that I knew who, when I was just started to get into trouble as a youth, we moved like a little bit north of there, up around like Highway 7 in Bayview. And there was a kid that lived right on Bayview. And it was funny because my first name's Vaughn. We moved to Vaughan Township. We lived on Vaughan Boulevard.
Look at that.
And so like all my friends were just like the Vons. They would like refer to me like as Fonzie or like the Fonz, but as the Vons, you know. Or they would call me Kermit because I was the skinniest kid on the planet. And whenever I smoked weed, I turned green. So they were like, yo, this guy's like, look like Kermit the Frog. And so, long story short, you know, by the time I moved up there, I was already skateboarding. And I had like, I was pretty good, you know. I was pretty good. Okay. And there was this other kid that lived on the block that was he was a couple years older than me. And he skated at the same spots. And so I was showing up there dolo, and he would just be there already. And he's just like, you know, what are you doing here? Like, these are my spots. I'm here solo. And he was kind of a bit of a roughneck, but he also was like, oh, you're doing the thing that I'm doing. And you're here either way and aren't scared of me. So eventually we kind of got cool. And he was like, he had definitely moved out really much younger. And was kind of on his own independent tip, and he brought me to his crib, and he had turntables, and he was the first person that I had ever seen like scratching up close. You know, I'd seen sound system stuff. I'd seen cats I was carrying reggae records to jams for friends when I was 12, 13, 14.
Nice.
So I grew up around system culture more than DJ culture, you know.
You're familiar.
Yeah, but when I saw him scratching, I was like, oh my God. And he was cutting 10% disc. And so that was the first record that when I went back to Monica's that week, because like living uptown, the funny thing is like it's really a confined sort of like cultural DNA, because I was only allowed to go as far south as Eglinton West, which is a big Jamaican and Trini neighborhood as well. Yep. So the first reggae stores or record stores that I was going to were Monica's and Treasure Isle. And then occasionally we would shoot across the tracks or something. But it wasn't until a couple years later that I started going to tracks and Play D. Yeah. And it was primarily on Thursdays when they had the reggae drops, and sometimes it was going there to rob kids for records, like straight up. We were like, the crew that I hung with was wild, and I always found myself in situations where I was like, I don't know, like this is, you know, whatever. But, you know, I should have been in the Play D documentary, man. I was salty when I didn't get to tell the story, you know.
Dang. We'll have to holler at Rob, get you in on the next cut.
You know? Yeah.
Yo, I love that you mentioned Treasure Isle. Damn. I really love that you mentioned that. Yeah,
those are, you know, kind of the formative spots for me as a kid, because, like, that's where we were allowed to go as kids. You know, it was kind of like, you know, you're allowed to go to one of the other worst neighborhoods in Toronto. Okay. But, yo, it actually, I think, like, it really is, like, the most special part of what's left of Toronto's old DNA is in those hoods, man. And it's increasingly, you know, as somebody who designs and builds spaces and likes to work with independent business and build shit for people, I keep coming back to this like point where I'm like, man, this shit's going to be gone soon. And it's a big part of my reasoning for wanting to split my time between here and there. And I think, you know, I'm living in Japan half the time now. I have I'm setting up a corporation there right now. I'm taking on investment capital to try and, you know, put my stake in something in Toronto, but also to be able to be in a place that inspires me. And even the parts of like growing up as like an outsider uptown as a kid, it kind of made me feel strangely nostalgic being an outsider there now, you know? So I feel really comfortable, and I'm just like, I have no problem getting around culturally because I've been helping design and build and help out a lot of Japanese businesses in Toronto, and from basically when I was living out in Vancouver. So it's been a good 20 years that I've been immersed in a small community that is kind of culturally informed how to move in those places, you know?
There you go. Go. Are you close to bilingual now? Do you know the language?
No, but I can follow conversations about 40 to 50%.
Okay.
You know, I know enough Japanese, as my friend says, to get me into a bar fight, and that's bullshit. But it is, you know, like I can follow along enough to be able to like understand the gist of what's going on around me. But I'm studying now, you know. Yeah.
There you go. What was your family's understanding about what vocation you chose to follow?
Yo, it's really funny, man, because as a kid, I definitely, you know, everything I was into, especially when it was like, you know, when I started slowing down with like skateboarding and started really getting into like producing, you know, my dad wasn't trying to hear any of that shit. He was just like, we're tradespeople, go get your fucking AC license and all this stuff. And, you know, I was on job sites since I was a kid watching steel get erected. So ironically, you know, in this influence, you know, 30 years later, when I decided to go into designing and building stuff after having been a barber for a bunch of years, which this is going to be some wild connective tissue. But, you know, if you start with millimeters of precision as a base for using tools, and then you are like, oh, I know how a building's built because I've seen it since I was, you know, 8 years old, 5 years old on job sites, and you have an understanding of how things are built. When you apply millimeters of precision to like larger things, and you can be like, man, building a house is way fucking easier than giving a good haircut. I can tell you that, just because, you know, the amount of distance that you have for error is it's a very forgivable distance. Right. So this is like kind of the one side of my family, and then the other side is my mom was always like super supportive of whatever it was, and like, you know, we didn't have cake when we were kids. I was like working night shift, you know, my last years in high school. Literally like going to high school and into college, I was like working night shift at a bakery, going to school all day and then going home and sleeping and going back to work because I wanted to do this shit. And so, you know, you want a 4-track, you want an SP1200, you want records, you want turntables. No. You're the smallest time D-boy on the planet, and you know, that's kind of what it is that it takes a lot of time and energy and money to do this shit if you wanted to. And I, like, it's funny because even working in the barbershop over the last, like my last couple of years where I was still doing it, this kid came into the barbershop, Toronto producer, and he was like, yo, I'm going into this, I'm not going to say the studio, but he was like, I'm going to this studio. And he was like, I was like, oh man, you're going to get a killer record out of that place. Like, I know that room. And he was like, no, I'm going there to sit in front of the thing. And I was like, the thing? Like, what are you talking about, you know? He's like, yeah, you know, the mix thing.
The mix thing.
And I was like, you have a publishing deal with the hot guys, you know? Like, what do you mean, you know? And he's like, oh, I'm just going there to take promo photos. And I was like, oh my God. He was like, I make all my shit on my phone. I use Koala Sampler. I've got a publishing deal. And I was like, bro, like, why don't you just go get a stylist and go out to the AgaCon and like have you in your phone and like run it, like be authentic about what you're doing, you know? And he was just like, you know, they need all this stuff to make me seem a certain way. And I was like, you know, the baseline foundation of this shit, and like, you know, like I can see it now where it's like people are scared and they, you know, they kind of want to conform to whatever the language is or whatever is expected of them. But there was a time doing any of this stuff where the baseline minimum was that you did your own shit, or else you're not going to get anywhere with it, right? And I think like there is like a generational gap between the people that grew up with it being like the no biting accepted era of rap shit, and the like this is totally okay to like, you know, fit within an ecosystem and have your own little version of whatever the thing is. And like now as I'm getting older, ironically, I want to make records that are like more in line with traditional hip hop records. Like this is the record I just made is by far the most straightforward kind of record. It's the least experimental, but it's also the one with the most amount of play. It's the one with the most amount of engineering experience. When I think back to like what I was into, even in terms of my taste in rap music when I was a kid, like I liked the Divine Stylers and, you know, outside of like the Parises and the X-Clans and the stuff that kind of crossed over ethically to like, oh, you like punk music. These are kind of entry points for you socially to come into this music. Right. That was kind of the first thing that drew me to it. Similarly to like reggae before it was like full on like Kill the Chichiman, you know, kind of stuff. But it was, before that, it was like revolutionary in the same ways that drew me and attracted me to those musics, you know? And it's funny, like, coming back to that stuff now and being like, actually, I just want to make really fucking dope records now, as opposed to being like, I want to make experimental records that are, you know, in this gamut. And so I feel like even with the lexicon of music, like I said, when I started sampling records, it was kind of outsidery stuff. It was everything from folk to psych to krautrock to Jamaican records to whatever. Now, you know, my last 10 years, I was mostly producing house records. So I was listening to the whole lexicon of disco records that were being sampled at the very beginning of this whole thing. And so maybe my trajectory is 100% the opposite of most people that start with funk, soul, disco as a foundation and go into sampling stuff. Mine's kind of like rock and outsider stuff and worked its way to this. But now I've kind of come back to the same starting point with this entire lexicon. And I feel like I'm just making better records now than I was ever making before.
On that note, we're most definitely going to talk about the new record shortly. But before we do, I have to acknowledge, because that's what we do on this pod. I have to acknowledge, again, your place in the canon. Guy, you are not just, you know, MC Robbie from freaking Toronto. You know what I'm saying?
Well, most people know me as a Scotian, actually, because I didn't start making records until I moved out east, right? So
True.
People have this associative tissue of being like,
you're like...
Everyone thinks I'm Scotian, you know? And I'm like, my family's from there. I kind of pretend a lot of the time when I'm misbehaving, you know? But that's... Yeah, that's it's funny how that is. Yeah.
Well, do you ever stop to think, you know, yo, man, I've fucking put out this much music. Yo, this is my place in Canadian music history. You ever just kind of stop and think?
It's really funny, man, because like coming back to do the 30-year anniversary and specifically working on the website, because I did want to give a lot back. You know, I'm looking at like the inadequacy of the platforms and how exploitative all of it is. And I'm just like, I'm just not participating in this fucking bullshit at all anymore. I can make this for myself in a way where it supports me directly. I can help my friends by doing that. So like my last year going through and trying to build up the website, I was like, man, the website has a free archive from all my stuff from like 1990, the stuff before 1998, 99, I'm kind of like, I can't even listen to this stuff. It's really bad music, you know? But, you know, the stuff at around 2000, I'm like, okay, there's tracks in here that I like now, you know? Then I can be like, this is all right. I'll start here. But I did put all the, you know, Halifax hip-hop flyers that I was on in that archive. So my archive starts at 95, and it's 30-year anniversary. And it's impossible when you actually start making the physicality and like, yo, the drive space alone is 33 gigabytes of music. And that's not everything. Like, I did put in some bonus shit, but when I look at it and I'm like, oh my God, and there's like just so much stuff that never came out. Like, I put up a track with like Me and Peace from Fellowship from like 2000, you know, like right after he got out. And I was like, this is personal music to me.
Yeah.
But I feel like now I can detach myself enough to be like, as an archivist, I want people to have this, even if if it's not my best output. Or at the time, I didn't want to release it because I was like, you know, I wanted to honor Peace, you know, and I was just like, this isn't his best material, and it's not my best material, and it's neither of our best material together. So let's just like leave this, you know. But now, as I'm going back and revisiting some of this stuff, stuff that I kept in the vaults and in the archives, I'm like, it's time to let this stuff go. Mm-hmm. And I want this first 30 years of contributions, which is not just in music, which, you know, like I'm a prolific dude. I can say that openly. I'm like, yeah, I've done a lot of fucking music. But, you know, in terms of scene building from Halifax's hip hop community through to the Turbo Crunk years with like Lunas and Jacques Green and Ango and, you know, Katro when he was Katra Dama and like all these guys. Mm-hmm. And then after that, there's a good 10 years of club music and foundation building for that stuff, including the most relevant venues in Toronto, AM, PM, Sounds Good, Listening Room at Imanishi, like all these spots. And so when I look at that as a canon, as a starter, it's like, okay, most of my favorite architects, musicians, filmmakers, biographers, fictional writers, they work for 30 years and then they start the second wave of what they're doing. And that's kind of where I see myself entering into now with this record. I can look at the contributions non-egotistically and be like, you've made a lot of contributions. You're a hardworking dude. You've always been super prolific, maybe to the detriment of the quality of some of that music or just the things that I've built. Now I want to really like sharpen the tools before cooking the meal, really think about what you're doing. And, you know, I want my closing statements to be stronger than the first 30. I want the next 5 years to be stronger than the last 30. That's really where I'm at with everything,
definitely.
you know?
Yeah, definitely. That's as an artist, as a creative,
Totally.
That progression is necessary for you to continue breathing.
100%. And so that's kind of where I'm at with all of it. Like, you know, I'm back to practicing turntablism. I'm practicing SP drumming, like shit that I'm like, yo, I haven't done this since 2008, but I'm not going to come out and be whack. Like I can't have it happen.
Yep.
I need my shit to be better than it was then. And luckily, the coolest part of it for me, to be honest, is filling in this blanks of like since like 2008 when I kind of took my finger off the pulse after 15 years of just only being on the radar with rap music or sometimes sound system and dance hall stuff or things on the peripheral of it. Coming back to that now, dude, there's like all this amazing shit that happened between 2008 and now that I get to come into, and I'm like, you know, I can discover a Ka catalog or like, you know, what Makami or like these guys that are just like, oh fuck, like that's the thing that was missing from this music in 2008 that I left. So I'm really excited about what I get to listen to and fill in the blanks with now. And, you know, I don't see it as much from the production side, but I do really see it from the rapper's side. And so there's like a lot of stuff that I'm like into now that I kind of missed out on, and I'm glad I missed out on because I get to enjoy it all now, you know?
And that, I think, is a perfect segue to talk about the new record. Because off top, I'll tell you straight off top, okay? I did not know what to expect for this record. Because I was like, man, he's been here. How's he going to come this time? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think a lot of people were feeling that way. And like
I'm saying though,
the other side of it is, man, like I had 150 tracks done in the bag that were a whole other record before I even started this stuff. Oh, yeah. And I don't want to get into the details and get in a mudslinging match, but all the samples got hemmed up, and so I was like, okay, whatever, man. Like, you know, I came back from Japan feeling a little bit bummed out because I went there 2 winters ago, and I was like ready. I was fully ready to just be there full time, and I like tried to get a visa. 6 months later, I didn't have a visa. I had to come back. And I was technically homeless. I wasn't homeless. I was just didn't have a home. I was housed, you know. Yeah. And, you know, my friends took care of me, man. Like one of my oldest and best friends and his wife, they just happened to have an extra spot. They were like, yo, you can stay here for a while, work on your shit, like figure it out. Yeah. And then my best friend, who is like one of my main writing partners, Andrew, he is my main writing partner. He has been for like the last 10 years.
That's right.
You know, he was just like, yo, we just bought a house. He's like, we got a basement apartment here. You're sorted, you know? And I was just like, this is amazing. So I've had this very lucky opportunity because Toronto's become just as obscenely expensive as Vancouver is now. And, you know, I wouldn't have been able to do the amount of work that it take to do this record if I didn't have the space to just be able to live in Toronto cheaply and, you know, kind of protected by my friends to be able to do it. And it's because my friends wanted to see it, you know? So I was lucky to be able to include all of them in some capacity with that. Like Matt, who was the first person, his wife did all the silk screening for all the mailers for this record. Andrew's got writing all over this record. And it's like, it is kind of this thing where my friends have really directly contributed to something in a way that isn't like, it's not overt. There's no voice in it, but they've definitely facilitated it. And that's cool, man. I feel so blessed, you know?
Straight up, as soon as I loaded the tracks into Serato, right? And then I was like, okay, Gonna load this up, gonna let it split, and then let's take this in. Didn't know what to expect. With like 3 joints in, I pulled on my portable, and I just started.
That's what I love to hear. Great. That's what I love to hear. That's what I want to hear, man. And it's funny because, I put together, the files I sent you are like the big zip that's on the site. So there's the separated tracks and there's alternate versions with no cuts. And I specifically was like, I'm cutting again. If I got this record, I would want to have no cuts on this record. So I'll make another version of it. And then there was like all this stuff that it was kind of in the past. And even, I feel like even some of those demos are like crazy, crazy strong. But they were like stuff that was just like, it's too much of a hassle for me to finish this shit. Mm-hmm. I got good momentum right now. I just want to keep moving. So like, there's, 4.3 gigs of music and drum tracks. Like cats have always, been like Sixtoo drums are dope. Like, I'm just like, just give it all, man. Yeah, let's go with it, man. So I'm happy to hear that, a couple tracks in, you were like sucked into doing your own collaboration with that record. That's awesome, man.
For real. And like, to be honest, I feel like that's always kind of been my process when I listen to a record. Mm-hmm. It's like, if it makes you want to pull out the portable, I feel like I'm gonna be fucking with this to the end of the record.
Great, I'm happy to hear that, man. And it's a thick record, man. That's 43 tracks in it.
Yes, it is.
But this was the thing, is like for the fans that, my last record as Sixtoo was Jackals and Vipers, which actually ended. It was like it was a tape edit record. It wasn't even really a written record because I had lost files and I had made that record out of like live recordings, mostly in Europe on a single tour. And so it's interesting coming back and being like, no, this is actually maybe the first real record since like 2004, when I did Chewing on Glass. So, I wanted it to have the same touch points and sensibilities of those records, but I wanted to use modern tools. I wanted it to feel like a 2000s underground hip-hop record, but filtered as loud as a fucking TDE record or, and it's a loud record. Dude, like when I took it to master, my guy who's been doing my records from time, he put out all my high school rap tapes.
Okay.
He has an incredible room on the East Coast. It's called Archive Mastering. If anybody needs a good master, go to him. He's amazing.
There you go.
We went there, listened to everything, took a round of notes, and he's like, I'm not touching this record. And I was like, what? What do you mean? He's like, the levels are good, everything's monoed, the stereo image is good, there's no distortion, the parts that are kind of a little fucked up it's a hip hop record, it's supposed to, everything. And so I was like, okay, if my guy says it's good, it's good. I sent it to press. And dude, when we got the test pressings back, me and Andrew were here, and we listened to it, and we were like, man, what it sounds a little fucked up. We don't know what's going on. And it turns out, like, in Ableton, there's, like, a monitor mode and a live mode that you can switch. And it was accidentally in the other mode and kind of, like, milliseconds behind because I run my clock like super tight, but it's like little bits of phasing, Okay. And I was like, man, does it sound fucked up to you? And it's like, yeah, but it's kind of good, and we were like trying to make excuses to be like, this record's fucked up. It wasn't fucked up. And as soon as we turned that off, we were like, oh man, this cut is loud. The record is cut really good. I sent it to the Czech Republic because I was like, I've cut a lot of records there over the years. They're always like so loud that they've got a noise floor, but I wanted it to just be a thing that it's double wax, it's loud, it hits all the check marks of what I needed this record to be for both people that used to buy my shit and for people that are coming into it fresh now, which, man, I don't know how it's happened, but even with the social traction of like the last 2 months, it's gone up by 30% and it's mostly young kids. And I'm like, yo, respect, I appreciate the follow, and I'm grateful to it. And to be honest, man, it's the thing that's really pushing me through to get through this next wave, which is like, okay, now you got to go and smash some shows. I'm flying to I'm flying to Germany next week to go buy a record cutting lathe so that next year's projects
shit.
we can do
Okay.
ourselves.
Oh,
And
he's serious now.
and this was entirely inspired by seeing what the Ruckazoids are doing and seeing what Swift Style's doing and all the homies that are operating at a very high level that are their attention to detail is crazy. Like that's the type of personality that I am, and I think I've made a record that's for mass consumption right now. Mass consumption. There's 500 copies, but that's a lot of records in 2025, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm grateful that it sold out in 4 days, on the pre-order. It'll be in shops in 3 days, But dude, I had so much money tied up in it, and I was very, very nervous because it's you built your own platform, you built a player, you built your archives, you built all this content. But now I can kind of start to go back to what I was doing with Bully Records and more from a curatorial side where it's focus down on making art objects as opposed to just making stuff that's for attraction, and that's where I'm headed with this stuff. I can tell you that straight up.
Well, one thing that I really appreciated was the manner in which you chose to release this, because it is your platform.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing that's unusual for you. What with triple bypass and stuff like that.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Hey, come on now.
And I mean, strangely, there's a big connection there, right? And knowing, not a lot of people know the history of that. So let's talk about that after, because there is a big connection to the inspiration of and what I'm trying to do in the very near future. But there was a huge inadequacy within the streaming networks. And to be honest, as somebody who was one of the guys who started doing that shit on the internet, I was just there's too many nefarious opportunists between the point of aggregation and the point of creation. You can't have this many middlemen between this shit, especially when it's just go get yourself a fucking web designer and put your shit up, It was scary because it's you have to pay someone to do this, and you have to pay for Shopify for a year, and you have to have a mail list that in my case, dude, I didn't expect to see, 2,500 new email subscribers in a couple days. I was there'll be 500, it'll be the light plan. And it's no, dude, they're not letting more people in. You have to pay more. And I'm fuck, but after seeing it it didn't go gangbusters, but it's it's healthy, and I think it's an indicator that you don't have to do this stuff the same way that everybody else does. You can make your own.
We've got a bit of a lag. We're just going to wait for him to come back in. That lag is lagging. We're, of course, speaking with Sixtoo right here on The Lounge Presents. We've been talking about the album and the manner in which he chose to release 30, which is the name of the album. His website is a really, really fine example of how I think artists now can take the bull by the horns and promote and sell their product in a manner in which they have full control. Yes, the streamers are there, but the streamers are another tool, right? If you're using Spotify, Apple, all that title, that's just a tool. It should never be your be all to end all when you're dropping music. That's what you should use for promotion. But to be able to sell your own music off your own site, if you're an independent artist in 2025, if you can do it, if you can make it happen, I highly recommend it. And Sixtoo definitely is showing you how you can do that. This website has everything. You'll be able to get anything he puts out, he'll be able to put out through that website. And we've got him back.
Sorry, I don't know what happened there. They're you're getting too spicy, man. Shut him down. He's going against the internet. No. It is that kind of thing where, I think, with triple bypass was kind of, it was one of the first 5 major hip hop streaming things on the internet. Period. That's where guys like Scratch Bastard got their name on that radio show. We did 5 hours a night, 5 nights a week from Halifax, and it was everything from, going to Rocksteady Crew weekends to B-Boy Summit to, Scribble to all these spots. And I think it was one of the bigger catalysts for underground hip hop in the early 2000s to even happen, So I really wanted to revisit that stuff. And this project is kind of arcing into a place where, after going through all of this music and seeing the archives and knowing that I've got enough stuff to easily be able to do my own shit, I'm working on something really fun for next year that I think people will enjoy. Yeah.
Well, when we had that little glitch out, I was calling attention to the fact that, once again, you are not necessarily pioneering, but you're showing another way for artists to do this. And I was talking about how, yes, if you have music on streamers, that's fine and all, but streamers should just be for promo. If you have
100%.
If you have stuff on streamers, that's great because it's promoting it. But being able to control your product and get it out is really, really important, because you can't rely on the streamers. And I think like doing that.
The biggest inspiration for me seeing it has been like, between what, I mean, shit, man. It's like, go look at Domino's shit right now, and you'll see like, this guy's dropping free science for everybody, and it's like, it's not the exact same science and DNA plan that I want to do, but it's like kind of the same sort of approach to ecosystem. And I think like, seeing, not only, I love what like all the Backwoods guys are doing. I love what like Ka was doing. Just people determining how to be autonomous themselves on their own terms. And like, that's what this shit is supposed to be. It's supposed to be on your own terms. It's not supposed to be some shuck and jive and be like, yo, I got the thing. It's like, fuck all that. Yeah. Do shit that's real and do it to the highest capability that you can. And now with the internet, it'll just find its people, man. Straight up. It will find its people,
That's where the algorithm will help you.
100%. And so, moving forward, I even with this record, I tried to jump into TikTok, and it's like, dude, the ceiling, they're like, you're not getting out of the 200 jail at all, And I was like, yo, my content's good, man. I got a real camera. Like, I know how to use it, whatever. But it's, I don't know, man. Like, at some point, you just have to choose the lane that you're going to operate in and just do it to the nth degree and hope that it works, And even if it doesn't, at least it's real, like.
Yeah. And it's something that you will feel good about. You know what I mean? It's funny that you bring up TikTok and the socials, because I mean, obviously TikTok is probably one of the primary methods of promoting music now in 2025 for a myriad of reasons. And I think we got a little bit more lag from Sixtoo here, but TikTok is obviously probably one of the most primary points to promote music. But you don't necessarily have to be beholden to TikTok to get your music out there. So I think Rob brings up a really good point about that, being able to have your content ready out there. Obviously, the internet gods are not playing today. They're fucking up our shit today, but it is what it is. He'll come back in, and then we'll get him back in. 30, again, the record that is out, he did do a drop, and he did mention that he's been able to sell out the product. You're getting a gang of joints with 30 if you were lucky enough to get in on that. I really commend what he's doing for the new release. Definitely the joints on here are dope. Like I'm not fronting when I tell you there's a lot of cut heavy joints on there. So for all my turntables out there, trust me, this is a record you're gonna want to cut to. Trust. And it didn't surprise me in the least, because it's not like this record is the first record he's put out that you wanted to pull out the portable and sesh to. He alluded to Jackal's and Vipers and Envy of Man. Came out 2007. That's a record you still want to cut to. You know what I mean?
I got it.
Hey, here we go.
I figured it out. I accidentally tethered to my phone this time. So now we're technologically sound now.
It's all gravy. The funny thing about live streaming and what we learned over the pandemic is glitches and lag outs will happen.
Yeah.
That after a while, it's really no thing. And it's like, oh, we got a glitch. And then you just rock it until the glitch is done and you come back in. So honestly,
100%.
it's not a thing anymore after the pandemic. I was talking about the fact that like I said, 3 or 4 songs in, I wanted to bust out the portable and start session to it. But what I was mentioning while we were waiting to come back in was, you referenced Jackals and Vipers and Ambient Man. That was still a record that you'd want to pull out your portable to and cut to. So it's nothing unusual to put on a 6.2 record and want to cut to it.
I mean, that's, to be honest, like I'm so lucky, man, that, especially when I go to Japan, like people like, like guys like Ken One and all those dudes in that circle, Quiet Storm, all those guys, like, I went to a DJ Crush night, like within the first couple days that I was there. Shit. And like,
DJ Crush.
And like, damn. But Kensei is playing like 6.2 tracks at the thing, and I'm just like, Kensei's the boss, bro. Like, so when I see people that like, it's not a like, oh, I need validation. It's nothing like that. It's just like, it's so nice to see people that you really fuck with supporting what you do, and even if it's like, I don't know if that's gestural, it's like, oh, people know you're in town, or like, it doesn't matter. It's just like, a salute is a salute, and I love that part of it. Yeah, man.
Exactly. And it's funny you bring up the validation thing, because as an artist, as a creative, validation is a word that we fuck with 24/7, all day, every day, till we're 6 feet under. You know what I'm saying?
Totally, man.
Sometimes people look at that word like it's like a like a bad word, but nah, man. Like,
I mean, the fact of the matter is, though, like, there aren't a ton of people that I'm like really, really into. Right. Like, I'm an iconoclast dude. Like, I don't need to be, in the thing to be a contributor to it. Luckily, but there are people that when I really rate them, I'm just like, man, fuck, I really fuck with these people,
No,
and those people are few and far between. So when you see it and it like hits home, you're like, man, there's nothing better than that, No and I think even, that comes from like that same stuff of like crew shit. Like, in the 2000s for me, that was 1200 Hobos, like, Dibs and John and all those guys, Gel and fucking,
Hobos!
And like Signify was my ace from time, and I was just like, these are the same type of DJs as me. They're like, they're into a lot of different music. They have a really creative approach to what they do, and no one had the same style as each other. Everybody had their own stuff. And I think that, like, to me, like some of the shit that Dibs was doing with 4-tracks at that time, like the turntable records that are most known are the Qbert records and D's records and those records, which, D's my favorite. But
it got deeper.
There was other stuff. That's the whole point. And it was conversational. There's other contributors to this conversation. And I'm very lucky that I was one of those people,
I'm so glad you bring up the 1200 Hobos, because one thing I definitely knew that I wanted to talk to you about is the turntablism aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me ask you, in 2025, turntablism now is so much farther.
Oh my God, it's crazy,
like,
bro.
Oh man, look at it now. What?
Like, coming back to it is like looking at skateboarding the same way. Like, it's just like, this is like, you can give me the Tech Trick encyclopedia and I'm still going to be the guy that just comes in and caveman and ollie. I'm going to goon through this stuff. But the one thing that I can say, and like, in terms of like what I like from it, I like steezy shit, And so coming back to it and kind of playing catch up with a lot of this stuff, like when I see, I don't know, man, like there's just so many good, like all those Oslo kids are fucking crazy. All the Russian kids are bananas. And it's, it's taken the things that I didn't like about turntablism in the mid 2000s, where it was just starting to feel like a little bit of an electric guitar contest, where it was like, it's like, oh, this, that's kind of, that's how it was feeling to me. But now seeing it like, 15 years later, and I'm like, holy shit, it's actually so dope right now. And
Oh my God.
I've, like I said, man, I'm kind of back to practicing and just playing again and just being like,
Love it.
I got one turntable and it's just for cutting and that's it. And for cutting on records and stuff.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it is something that, like, coming around to it, it's really been a big part of, like, I didn't expect there to be any cuts on this record, but once I started seeing all this shit that was, like, in the, like, sphere,
Fingers got itchy.
fingers got itchy, but also,
Oh, yeah.
like, some of the people that really pushed me the most coming back to this project were people like Swift Style, or seeing Dibs like a bunch of shit one night or whatever, and you're like, oh man, like, maybe this should still have the hallmarks of what I was doing 25 years ago, like that was my life at that point, was like, doing HTML battles in Halifax and, doing ITF, so I'm excited to kind of like be able to revisit this stuff, even if it's just like busting an ollie out of the deep end of the pool and not like a nollie heel flip.
Nice references there. Nice references. For all the skaterheads out there,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. Have you had a chance to? I asked this because again we're talking a little bit about turntablism in 2025. Have you had a chance to build with Dopey and the Scratcher Toronto folks at all?
I haven't, and it's funny
Okay.
because even this week I was like, I saw the new Scratcher like portableism battle get announced today, and I was like, let me look up to see what Scratcher Toronto is doing, because I was like, I should go out to this, and so I'm definitely ready to go tap in and have other cats to cut with, like, because it's also like really funny because the way that I think about like what I want to use cutting for specifically, I prefer like phrase cutting and like kind of, especially in the context of the record, you can hear it. There's like whole narratives that are built around cutting, call and response stuff, and things that are just like, there's one that's like there's like an African joint with a woman singing, and it's just the absurdity of like, I'm so flossy, bitch, get off me, like this dichotomy of like men and women kind of vibe. And like, it's subtle, but if you really listen to shit, you'll be like, oh, I get what this is, And I think like that the shell game part of it, where it's like you think it's one thing, so it's another place. I like doing that stuff with records, and I think like DJing is still a really interesting way of doing that. And I think especially like, since the fucking microwave era of DJing has happened, like coming back to things that require actual skills is really important if people want to retain DJ culture, because that's the only place where there is a barrier, where it's just like, you want to be a part of this, you have to spend an hour a day in your bedroom just to be able to exist in this ecosystem over here. This stuff, you need an Instagram and whatever account, you need Shazam. But this, you have to actually do it, And I love that.
Is there a possibility that you might be entering Wildcats?
I don't know. I don't know about that.
Get up in there.
Yo, I'll tell you what. I'll build the lighting design for it. How about that? I'll show up and come and build them something for the backgrounds.
Well, one thing with turntablism now too is, I mean, it's like, a lot of the OG heads, like from every market, every country, they're the ones that are kind of shining right now. Like,
well, and especially
killing it right now.
To be honest, man, even in the production sphere, like my favorite producers, Teebs and Ruckazoid and guys like that.
Yeah.
Those guys are all turntablists and they're all nasty, bro. Like, so before anything else, the bench, D Styles is a fucking nasty producer, And when I see that kind of stuff, even in Japan, like a lot of my favorite guys are like, independently of their production, they are nasty DJs, And I think that there's like a place, I think it's a mandatory place if you're going to make instrumental hip hop, 100%. Like you should be able to cut, even if it's just the zigga to put it over top of the thing, but it is something where like, when you kind of loop back to what the DNA of these things are and the most interesting periods of every part of it, there are really dope DJs amongst that entire lexicon, and I feel like it's an important part of it.
Yeah, we will not stop talking about turntables like ever.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at, and especially now because DJing is a lot more accessible. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the kids are getting in on it.
Mm-hmm.
Something tough.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And they've got skills and they're
Yeah, it's
winning
crazy.
battles.
Yeah, no, I mean, I went when I first started going back to Japan and playing shows. I did like a little night at JBC, and the Kaiharu brothers came
Yeah.
through,
Hmm.
and you know, I'm there with like my guy Ken One and Lan, and those guys are DJing with me for this live beat set, and they came through and just like, dude, they're so nasty, man, and we're just like. It's like, oh my god, when these kids determine what they love in this world, they'll be fucking unstoppable.
Oh,
Because I think like that's the main thing that like, you know, as I'm getting closer to like feeling a little bit more like a statesman after 30 years of doing this stuff and knowing exactly what I want to do with my own music, my voice is really strong even in the context of like using DJ shit within my records, right? But I think that's something that you learn with time. But if you're starting out with this like incredible skill level, and then you find the things that are just like your personality parts and start putting those together, it's like unstoppable combination. I'm really excited to see it,
yeah.
you know, 10 years from now, because that all these kids are already so insane.
Oh, wow. I can't
Yeah.
even. It's got me a little shook.
Totally, man.
It's like, I think I still have like one or two battles left in me, TBH, and I'm looking at Wildcats and I'm looking at DMC like, fuck.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, man.
What am I
100%.
gonna have to deal with? You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, yeah, 100%.
God.
But I mean, even like the ecosystems of it are so cool now. Like I love seeing like, you know, Scratcher's graphic design is fucking amazing, and like seeing what like all the LA guys are doing, and even the crossover stuff that's like, you know, seeing Qbert play stuff with like Geometrics, which are like my guys. Like that's my lane where I'm like, oh, I want music that sits in this world that's here, you know, or Gaslamp or those kind of guys making records with Mephono, or like those dudes that have been in, and like those guys have been supporters of me in a big way, man. Like, you know, Gas used to put my stuff on mixtapes, and Mephono, like, yo, he sent me a really nice message kind of halfway through all of this stuff and kind of was like, yo, man, like these records anchored our nights, like really push this. And I was like, oh man, this is someone I really fuck with, hitting you up out of the sphere to be kind and be like, you know, really do this.
Yeah.
So, you know, the parts of it that are really cool now is seeing like the language develop in addition to just like the skills of it. And I think that it's a lot more sophisticated now, and it's just tighter, man.
Oh yeah.
It definitely feels more like something that I want to be involved in than like
There you go.
when it was just like,
Sixtoo and Wildcats
you know,
next
this.
year. Let's go.
Yeah, man.
Damn, man. Before I let you go, there's a couple of random questions that I wanted to ask you that didn't quite fit the narrative that we were going to follow. So I'm just gonna lob those at you real quick. Like,
Yeah, man. Shoot.
did you interview Mixmaster Mike?
Yes, I did.
What was it for?
Triple bypass.
God damn.
Yeah.
There you go.
I mean, dude, I interviewed Qbert before anybody was doing it. Futura. Dude, I interviewed Futura when he had his first iteration of his website. And like, you know, we were traveling for Triple Bypass to do all of the battles. So I felt really lucky that,
good coverage,
you know,
by the way.
when it was still like 56K dial-up, we had a T3 line. We were just murking Halifax's bandwidth, you know. But, you know, cats would sit at home, wait 15 seconds to download the, like, you know, 4-second clip of Qbert, just, you know. And I think, like, with all of that stuff, I've been very, very lucky to, like, you know, be around an ecosystem for a long time, independently of being an artist, to be around those people, from the Crushes to the Qberts to, you know, to the Dibses to all of those guys. Like, I'm very lucky.
Okay, next random question. Prince, welcome to Canada at Rogers. What are your thoughts?
Do you want to hear, like, man, I don't know how much I'm allowed to talk about this, but I found out, like, after I'd been working in Vancouver for a while, that when, you know, I was working with, like, all the guys that helped to do all the stuff in Gastown. So we did My Gallery, we did Bonita, we did the Diamond, you know, Mark Brand stuff. And when we put the catalog, and when we put the meal program in Save On, apparently, and Matt called me after Prince had passed, and was like, you know, this is crazy. He was like, Prince donated money to help us put that meal program on there.
What?
Yeah.
Oh.
And so I don't know how much like people know about like his personal history and like religious stuff, but you know, I can tell you within my circle, there's been at least 3 philanthropy projects independently of each other in different cities that I know of where he just like, this is cool, like you should do this.
Yeah.
Fucking crazy.
Yeah,
but Prince is my favorite musician, man, 100%.
He was a quiet giver when it came to his philanthropy.
Amazing. Super amazing.
So the show, what were your thoughts on that show?
I mean, it was really interesting because we had, I don't know if it was like an ex or like, we had a friend's connection in his band that we knew one of the women who was performing in that group.
Which makes sense, yeah.
And so we were like, I think the like thing with Prince is there's like definitely a suspension of disbelief that happens when you go to those shows. Yep. And I think seeing someone that was kind of like peripheral to our circle playing in that context kind of broke the suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
But, you know, we helped hook up that show at Bar None that happened after that. And so after this show, you know, we had this cabaret show and, you know, Prince played everything except doing vocals. And dude, it was the best night of music, swear down, that I've ever seen. It was fucking crazy. Just his band doing JBs and Pass the Peas and fucking, you know, like all these tracks. And we were just like, my God, like he can play every instrument. And like, you know, whether it's true or not that he has a photogenic memory and can memorize charts and that's part of the genius and stuff, it doesn't matter. It's just like when you see it and see him walking with his bodyguards, and I know he does have a photographic memory because when he came through there that night, he saw me and he was like, hey, you played at my bar, right? Because he bought the bar that Purple Rain was shot in. Yep. That's First Avenue, which is where all the hip hop shows happen in Minneapolis.
Yep.
So I had a night where I had seen him there and he was like, yo, he remembered me dead ass. Just like pulled me through the crowd, and I think I was in like earshot of other people, and they're like, "Yo, you know Prince?" And it's like, "No, I don't know Prince, but Prince knows me."
God damn.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's super crazy.
You know, you could just finish here.
I think we should finish here. It's a great story, bro.
Yo, man. Not many people can say what you just said.
It's a really crazy. And, straight up, it's a testament because, like, Minneapolis, you know, with Rhyme Sayers and what Sadiq was doing there with all of that stuff, with Fifth Element, with The Shop, and First Avenue, like, dude, that was after he bought that venue, it was the hip-hop and black music spot in Minneapolis, period.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, you know, the amount of people that had gone through there, especially within the underground circles, it's just fucking crazy. And, like, the first time I went and performed there, I was on tour with Sage. We were on the stage, and I was having deja vu, because so much of that movie is shot from the stage looking out. And I'm like, where the fuck are we? Like, having, like... It's really crazy when you're there because, like, if you're a super fan, which I am a super fan, to have that kind of experience is just bananas, bro. God. But it's a testament to the connectivity of music and memory, man. 100%.
There you go. 6'2".
Yeah.
Thank you, man. Enough respect.
Yo, my pleasure, man. I appreciate it. And I'll give a shout when I'm out there, man. I'm trying to hook up a show in Van. If anybody hears this, you want the hot live show, hit me up, man.
There you go. Where can people find you on socials?
Sixtoo Productions on the net, Sixtoo.productions, which is like, that's a tight domain, I'm just going to say so. And at Sixtoo Productions, that's where I'm at.
Now, if they want to get their hands on the record,
they're going to have to hit stores now because it's sold. The pre-sale sold out.
Exactly.
Lorama definitely has at least a box that are his big size. This I'm having a brain blank right now. Listen Coffee in Halifax has a big box. So those are two shops. In Toronto, it'll probably, I mean, it will be Invisible City will have them. Vancouver, no one picked them up. Sorry, guys. But, you know, at least it's cheap shipping in Canada, so whatever. They hit me up. It was just already gone. So, you know, it was something where, like, I did 500 and I needed to, like, just make the decisions early enough that it was, I should have done more, but whatever. I'll repress it next year, man. It's like, yeah.
You have the benefit of being able to repress it. It's all good.
Yeah.
Now, I know you want to do some shows. Is that for the new year?
No, I'm actually moving back to Japan in December. So between now and December, my weekends are open. This is what I'm doing. I'm just like getting next year ready. I'm writing a lot of music. As you can see right here, I've got an Octatrack and I've got MPC running into the Octatrack as a processor. I got MIDI going out to the turntable as a controlled MIDI track. So I'm doing musical solo stuff. I'm trying to really treat it as an instrument, and the show is going to be dope. I can tell you that.
Fuck yeah. Jeez. Yo, man. I hope this is not the last time we get you on the pod.
Man, I'm down to chop it up anytime, man. Hit me back.
Hell yeah. If we want to get you on for wrestling or comics or some shit.
You know, whatever. You know, I'm down for whatever, man. How about construction tips? We'll do that one.
Nah, but for real, we are supporting you. All right. We want this record to, apart from the pre-sale, which you obviously did very well with, we'd like to see this record sell out in stores as well. We like to see your name up in the lights where it belongs.
Appreciate that, man.
In the forefront. So, man, first opportunity to we'll get you back in the lounge space.
I appreciate it, man. Yo, it's good rapping with you. Hold it down.
Be easy.
We'll see you soon.